along with Randall Cunningham, joining you on this post-Christmas holiday. Phil, I want to welcome you aboard. We're going to get a show in tonight. We may not have one next week with it being Christmas, so we definitely wanted to get one in tonight. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Fixing to go to a football banquet. We're going to take a little time to try to get a little bit of this done.
Well, Phil, the number one reason we thought it necessary to have a show, we got some stuff about basketball coming up, some stuff about the DeKalb County Hall of Fame. But today, the long-awaited announcement for a realignment in the region came down, and there was a bunch of movement in the Sand Mountain in our general listening area. And I don't know if you have this in any particular area, but let's start with 3A because I think that area just become a juggernaut.
Yeah, definitely so. Especially the top four when you're considering 5 Sylvania and Geraldine and Collinsville in the region they'll be in. Of course, it ended up being 5 being the smallest 3A school, but they did move up from 2A to 3A. So it's going to change things around a little bit.
That also in that area, one of the major changes, Sylvania and Plainview will not be in the same region as Plainview moves up to 4A.
Yeah, Plainview will go to 4A, and they're in a 4-team region. 4A Region 8, they've got DAR, Madison County, New Hope, North Jackson, Dems, Randolph, St. John Paul II, and then Westminster Christian. So really, at Plainview, they're only going to have 2 non-region games. Who do you play? Sylvania and Fife. You hope to get them 2 in. But scheduling is going to be difficult for Plainview because they've got 8 region games set already, so they only got 2 choices.
Yeah, it's tough in the area too. I'd already had this talk with Coach Van, and I've sent him the text, and I've not got an answer yet, Phil. One of the logical things for Plainview and Sylvania to do, Fife comes into the regular season now or into the region schedule. Should leave Sylvania's week 10 open. So could Sylvania move into that week 10 and create Plainview Sylvania week 10?
Yeah, well, it's important how it falls because, see, when you're in like Plainview, that tomorrow, we'll find out tomorrow for sure. Now, when tomorrow they draw for the region schedule, in other words, it's not set by the state. The coaches don't figure this out. It's a draw. So Plainview has to get 8 games in, and you don't know where they're going to fall because they're going to have an extra region game. So you don't know where their 2 open dates are going to fall. It could be week 1, and it could be week 9, which would be a week that Sylvania would be playing a region game. So you don't know how that's going to fall with them. Their schedule is going to affect. It is really going to affect what Fife and Sylvania will do if those 2 end up on their schedule.
So, as I understand, 3, 5, and 10 are going to be reserved for out of conference or out of region, and 5 is the flex one if you've got 8 teams in your region. So, really, that only leaves them, besides their bye weeks, 3 and 10 as an option.
Yeah, they don't have but 2 weeks in their options to play a non-region game. So that's what's going to make it difficult. Now, with Sylvania and Fife knowing that they're in the region with 8 teams, they've got 7 region games, so they've got 3 they can schedule.
Yes. Let's jump over to that Region 8 3A real fast because Phil, while it's loaded at the top, it might be very bad at the bottom, if that makes sense. It is Ashbury, Brindley Mountain, Collinsville, Fife, Geraldine, Holly Pond, who I don't know a whole lot about, and Sylvania and Whitesburg Christian. Tell me about the 2 I don't know a lot about, Holly Pond and Whitesburg Christian.
Well, Holly Pond lately has not been played very well. Now, I don't know a lot about them, but they have struggled lately. Whitesburg Christian was in 2A. They did not do very well. They're moving up to 3A. Asbury and Brindley Mountain traditionally have struggled. So you're right. You're looking at Collinsville, Fife, Geraldine, and Sylvania that's going to be in a top-heavy region. but those 4 teams will be very good. So how it plans out, and I think that the way this region is the top teams in that region want to play a tough non-region schedule to keep themselves prepared for the big boys.
Yeah, absolutely. I know both Coach Benefield and Coach Van has talked about that. I jump down to 2A. What happens with Fife leaving? You get Cedar Bluff, Gadsden, North Sound Mountain, Pisgah, who you got to think it's going to be the class of this region now. Pleasant Valley, Sandrock, and Section. Pretty wide open there.
Well, at 2 through 7 is very wide open. I
Yes.
think Pisgah will walk the walk in that region, and that's nothing against these other teams. It's just, the way it has been lately. North Sand Mountain, I would think, could be an opportunity to finish in the top 2 or 3 in this region.
I would think so, too.
Because right now, Section, Sandrock, Pleasant Valley's kind of getting their feet on the ground. They started out the year like 4 or 5-0 last year, but didn't finish up strong. Gaston is struggling to kind of get traction. Cedar Bluff's trying to get their feet back on the ground again, but really Pisgah is going to be the class of this region.
I would think so. Now, jump down to 1A. I know I'm kind of doing it different. I think the Valley Head Tigers has a region that they can be very successful in Appalachian, Galesville, Ider, Raglan, Spring Garden, who are traditionally a good football team, Valley Head, and Woodville. Valley Head's got to like that.
Yeah, well, the thing is that it's going to be very competitive because Spring Garden's been good lately. Raglan's good every year. Appalachian's pretty good every year. Woodville had a good year last year. Had won the school record of wins in the season. They won 6 games last year. Of course, Ider drops from 2A to 1A. That's going to help this football program tremendously because it's a team that's trying to get their feet on the ground. They've got very few upperclassmen, but playing in 1A for a couple of years will be very beneficial to this Ider program. I think it's a pretty balanced region. I don't see anybody in there that's gangbuster you would call great, but I think it's going to be very competitive. No doubt about it. They lost Decatur Heritage out of this region. Of course, Tucson moved up to 2A. And, of course, we thought Summerton Christian was going to come into this region, but I think it had to do, since Decatur Heritage went to 2A, it took Summerton back over to the west part of the region and brought Spring Garden and Raglan into this region because Cedar Bluff moved to 2A.
It was kind of a combining of 2 regions in 1A.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Raglan and Spring Garden come out of that. And Spring Garden and Raglan come out of that, kind of the southern northeast part. Down there where Wadley and all them were. Appalachian's on that borderline, too, but they stayed in this region. So I think it makes it a lot better travel for these teams. They all get to stay on the northeast side of the state instead of having to go to Decatur and places like that. The biggest west trip these schools have to make is probably over to Woodville.
Mm-hmm. Now, Phil, and we're trying to get up to some of the bigger schools here. 4A Region 8 is truly a new region with new rivalries, teams that have been 3A moving up, 4A moving down or moving around. So let me give you this and give me your gut impression of it. Kate Smith Duncan, Smith, I believe that's what we refer to as DAR, is it not?
Yes. Yes.
Madison Academy goes from 3A to 4A. Madison County is in this region. New Hope is in this region. North Jackson is in this region. Plainview is in this region. The Randolph School, who I know nothing about, is in this region. St. John Paul II is in this region, and Westminster. Phil,
this region has become a lot more competitive. It was not a very strong region last year. DAR has struggled, but now you get Madison Academy in 4A, great program. Madison County struggled last year, but athletically, they're usually very competitive. Yeah, New Hope, not a bad program at all. They're very competitive. You've got North Jackson, who improved last year. I think Plainview coming into this region, I think this is beneficial to the Plainview Bears. They've been trying to get back on their feet. They've been in a tough 3A region. When you're looking up at Piedmont and Sylvania and Geraldine, those schools that have traditionally been strong lately, it's been tough for Plainview to get back up to that level. And then plus they still have to play 5. So their schedule's been very difficult. I think this is going to be as beneficial to Plainview as it is to Ider dropping to 1A. I think it's going to give Plainview an opportunity to get their feet on the ground. Now, Randolph, you said you know anything about, very good school as far as they will score points. It's a very offensive-oriented program. St. John Paul, they have not been traditionally very good. Now, Westminster played in the semifinals last year against Cherokee County, or this past year. Now, Cherokee County handled them pretty heavily, but Westminster last year was the class of this region. So they're pretty good also. But with Madison Academy, Westminster in there, this is going to be a lot better region than it has been in the past.
So let me ask you a question about Coach Pruitt's Bears. I know in Tennessee, we've had some schools opt to come out of 3A and move to 4A. I don't think Plainview opted to do that. But I feel like in Tennessee and in Alabama, 4A may be bigger schools, but I feel like 3A is better football. Is that kind of the same situation that Plainview finds themselves in?
Yeah, I think that's what I think happens in 4A is you have a lot of good and you have a lot of bad because it's just big enough to where because in 4A you'll start having a lot better basketball teams.
Yes.
A lot more athletic basketball teams. So football is kind of not that strong from top to bottom. But in 4A basketball, you see some good basketball in 4A. So it's just the way it has worked out. So, like the 4A region right here has not been very strong, but now that you see Madison Academy and Plainview move up, that's what I say. I think this is going to be good for Plainview. Of course, their basketball program is very good.
Yes.
They won the state championship last year. I think they're 10-3 right now this year going into the Sand Mountain tournament. So, again, they're off to a great start. But, yeah, I think 4A has that thing where I think a lot of times, too, you'll have like DAR, not very good in football, but they're very good in basketball. North Jackson, traditionally, good in football, not very good in basketball. So it's a 4A is kind of like an either or. You're good at one or the other.
And I feel like 4A in Tennessee is like that line where you get out of county school. You're not quite in county schools, but you're not really in city schools. You're kind of in like in 3A, we have Sequatchie County and, a lot of those county schools, where in 4A, you'll have more regional schools from slightly bigger county, but they might be 3 schools in that county. Or in like 3A, we get every kid in Sequatchie County. If they're a good football player, wherever they're at, we're getting them. A place up the road like Greenville might have a great football player have 3 or 4 options, so that can make a difference too.
Yeah, I think what I would say, a lot of these 4A schools down here are outside of big cities.
Yes.
But there's a good population in those country areas.
Yeah.
That's where like Grant's that way, which is DAR. Over in Madison County High School, which is in Gurley. Actually, really, it's kind of outside the Gurley city limits, but it's outside of Huntsville, just outside of Huntsville. North Jackson's kind of Stevenson, Bridgeport combined, and it's a big area, not a huge populated area, but a huge area where everybody goes to North Jackson. So you're right, it draws in a bunch of people, and a lot of times it's a big county school that draws everybody in. That's kind of the way this is. And of course, that's also where you'll find a lot of your private schools.
Yeah.
And that's where you got Madison Academy, Randolph, St. John Paul, and Westminster, all in this region. A lot of times your schools that are private schools end up in a lot of them are in 4A.
Excellent. Good point, Phil. Now, jumping up to 5A, I absolutely love this region. AP Brewer, Arab, Boaz, Douglas, Fairview, Gunnersville, Sardis, and Scottsboro. That seems like a kind of a traditional, little new, but mostly traditional region there, Phil.
Yeah, it definitely is. Now, one big difference, Fairview, which is lately has had a very good football program, they moved into this region and make it a little more strong. It's a lot stronger region. Sardis has really improved. We know how good Gunnersville is. We know how good Scottsboro has been. Boaz ended up the season very good last year. Arab's competitive every year. Douglas has got to where they're pretty good. This is a region where most of these teams last year were around 500 or better.
Yep.
So it's going to be a very competitive football region. So we're going to see, how it goes. But, yeah, I think this is going to be some great games every Friday night out of 5A Region 8.
I think so, too. Jumping over to Region 6, and I do think this is a region that I felt like reading at it. It's going to be tough for Fort Payne, Buckhorn, Fort Payne, Gadsden City, Hazel Green, Lee, May Jemison, and Southside. That's a lot of good football teams in that region, Phil.
Yeah, because Southside was 5A last year, and this was only a 16 region last year. So Southside moves from 5A to 6A. So now you add another region game, so you got 7 region teams. And I think it's going to be a very competitive region. Of course, Gadsden City has been the best team in the region so far. But Fort Payne's held its own. They ended up winning a playoff game last year, so you feel pretty good about them in this region. Southside's really become traditionally strong every year. So this is going to be a good region, and that adds a great game for Fort Payne to get to play Southside in a region game, because a lot of times Fort Payne, they play, of course, Gadsden City is a good rival game, but when they play Buckhorn, Hazel Green, Lee, and May Jemison, the people right here don't know a whole lot about them. So, of course, they added Cherokee County on their schedule last year, and, of course, they always play Scottsboro. But a Southside is going to help with scheduling for Fort Payne.
And, there really wasn't a 7A region I called our own. The closest thing I saw was Albertville, Austin, Bob Jones, Florence, Grissom, Huntsville, James Clemens, and Sparkman. What do you think of that region?
Oh, yeah. They're not going to be as good as 7A Region 3, because, 7A Region 3 has your big dogs in Thompson and Hoover and Vestavia Hills and Hewitt-Trussville. But usually here lately, Bob Jones has been good. Florence is good. And James Clements is usually good. Sparkman got off to a good start. I think they started out like 4-5-0 and then lost their last 5. Always a very athletic team. Of course, Haverville finished and didn't win a game last year. So they're trying to, try to get their head above water. But, this is a tough region. It's tough for Haverville to play in 7A. They do okay in basketball, but it's just tough on them in football.
Yeah, it seems like it would be. Overall, Phil, and we'll move on to a little basketball here. Overall, I just want your impressions, winners and losers of this realignment.
Well, I want to point out one we didn't really talk about region-wise. We're actually 2 regions that, kind of sort of familiar folks, because, people will notice because you got playoff time coming. 3A Region 6. Now, Locust Fork, who was in 2A last year, 5 feet in the quarterfinals, they move up to 3A. So they go into 3A Region 6, and they're in with Glencoe, Locust Fork, Ohatchee,
That's a
Piedmont,
good region.
Sachs, Walter Welborn, Weaver, and Westbrook Christian. That is going to be a tough region, top to bottom. That's top to bottom region, where 3A Region 8 is maybe top heavy. 3A Region 6 is going to be good top to bottom. So come playoff time, this 3A Region 6 you're going to want to watch out for, especially with teams like Locust Fork and improving Glencoe program. Ohatchee kind of struggled last year. Piedmont's probably going to be a year better under their new coach. Sachs is always athletic. Walter Welborn had a pretty good year last year. And Westbrook's going to get better with Coach Steve Smith down there. So this region's going to be tough.
And that's the region that's basically Plainview and Sylvania left.
Yeah, definitely. It kind of sort of realigned things, because Collinsville 5 moving back up to 3A.
Yeah.
That kind of changed things around just a little bit. And also a region to point out is 2A Region 6, because, Coosa moved up from since they got to the finals this year, they moved from 1A to 2A, and they're going to be in 2A Region 6 with Cleveland, Cold Springs, Faultville moves into that region. And Faultville, traditionally, football has been pretty good. Then you've got Southeastern, Susan Moore, and West End. So Coosa is probably going to be one of your better teams in Class 2A. We'll find out later. But right now, I like Pisgah's chances. So, Pisgah's in good shape right now. Everything kind of fall, their way. They're still going to have to contend with Coosa. They're still going to have to contend with teams like Tuscaloosa Academy and Tanner and people like that. But you feel pretty good about Pisgah. Getting to the semifinals 2 straight years, you feel like it's got to be close to being their turn.
Yes. Yeah, we I'm sure if you talk to Coach Pruitt, he'd say, we never think anybody is clearing our way, but us as a kind of announcers, you don't have that huge hurdle of Paul Benefield and Fife in your way of getting past the semis now.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's true. Of course, us as media get to look at it that way. They don't. They have to take one game at a time because, injuries are always a factor. It was a factor for Pisgah when they lost Mason Holcomb in the playoffs. Would they have beat Fife? Who knows? You don't know. But like Coach Pruitt said, he wasn't down about it. He goes, hey, you just have to go and play with the cards you're dealt. That's just the way life works. And and Pisgah held their own against Fife. They played very well, I thought, against Fife without Mason Holcomb. But, you hate to see him as a person go down with the injury because you'd like to see him get to play in that game to see how the game would have ended up.
Phil, is the other 3A region, honestly, when I first read that, if you can win that region, you are automatically a state title contender.
And you're talking about the 3A Region 6?
Yes.
Oh, yeah, definitely. Because, see, you're going to be playoff season. That's the way that's been. The region Piedmont's always been in. Those teams are so close to each other and so competitive each week. You're playoff tested before the playoff season starts. So that's what, yes, if you win that region, there is a great opportunity to go deep into the playoffs.
Phil, one more comment. I want to get it, and then we'll get on to basketball. I did notice in Region 6, Clay Chalkville gets on the outskirts of our listening area where they now Huffman, Mountain Brook, Oxford, Pale City, Vincent Valley, and Shays Valley. That's kind of loaded there too at the top.
Yeah, Clay Chalkville was such a well-coached team. I remember watching them in the finals. I was so surprised that as the game wore on, you could tell they were so well coached, and they got better as the game went on. And that was the difference in that football game. They just got better and better. It don't matter who Clay Chalkville, and they ended up being the number 1 ranked by voters, the number 1 ranked team in the state of Alabama.
Yeah.
When the season was over with.
That's incredible. And they're 6A.
Yeah. Yes.
Phil, before we jump on to basketball, and God, I love this realignment stuff. Of course, Tennessee, we get it next year. We just went through it. And I'll be honest with you, I'm expecting a huge realignment for Sequatchie County. One of those where you move from a Middle Tennessee region to an East Tennessee region. That's what everybody's hoping and expecting, but we'll find out. I understand y'all had some had a meeting this weekend. You had some headway on the DeKalb County Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that was last Sunday. We had voting on the Hall of Fame and had 8 members that are going in. I don't know if they've really released it to the media to where it's been published in the paper. I haven't kept up with it that much. But yeah, we had 8 new people go into the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame. Of course, Paul Benefield is automatic because he was inducted to the state Hall of Fame this past year, so he automatically goes in. And then we had several others to go in. Of course, one of those was Bobby Holloway, former head basketball coach at Valley Head, and he also played basketball at Fife. Then there was Mickey Willingham, who played several sports at Plainview back in the late 70s. And then Dwayne Patterson, he writes for the Daily Sentinel, has also wrote for one of the Sand Mountain papers at one time. He is from Rainsville. and he was inducted into the Hall of Fame, being inducted into the Hall of Fame in Jackson County this year. Now, this coming year, he's going to be inducted to the DeKalb County Sports Hall of Fame, but that's well deserved. Wayne Patterson's one of the best riders, around here. He probably should have been riding at a whole lot higher level, but that's well deserved. Then we had Hillary Phillips, who one of the best. Probably could call her the best. She probably was the best pitcher in all time in DeKalb County softball history. Of course, she played other sports, but mainly she's known for her softball. She's an outstanding pitcher. Back in 2009, I think she finished. But I think she took Ider to 3 or 4 state championship games. But she's from Ider. She was inducted. Of course, Curtis McDaniel is the late Curtis McDaniel. He was an outstanding football player at Fort Payne in the late 80s, went on to play. I know at one time he was at Jacksonville. Went to junior college, ended up at Jacksonville, I think. But
yeah, he ended up at Jacksonville.
A class individual. He's one of those quiet. He was probably not mean enough to be a defensive lineman, but he was an outstanding player. That's what everybody said. He wasn't mean enough, but he was good enough to play at Jacksonville State, so that says a lot about him. He is an outstanding player, but he's not with us anymore. But I was so glad he got in the Hall of Fame.
Phil, and I knew him well. Had a tryout preseason with the Seattle Seahawks. You make it to that level, you're pretty good. And I cannot remember. He was in junior college. It was either with Copeland or Curry, and I remember him sitting in Radio Shack years ago and talking about their defensive line. I believe it was Eric Curry was on his team in junior college over in Mississippi.
Did he go to Hines, Mississippi?
I was about to say Hines, yes. And then on to Jacksonville, where he won a national title over at Jacksonville too,
Yeah.
Great individual, great person. I did not know he had passed until you just brought it up.
Yeah, it hadn't been long ago, but yeah, I didn't know he had passed either. We got to talking about him. I knew what outstanding player was because I remember he come along a little bit after me. I was probably out of school 2 or 3 years when he come along, but I know he was an outstanding player because I knew a lot of people from Fort Payne at that time. So I saw him play on a couple of occasions. So yeah, he passed away not too long ago, but this is well deserved. I'm glad he got in. And of course, the other was Jamie Vest of Valley Head. She played, or Blaylock Vest, or Jamie Phillips Vest.
Yes.
But she played at Valley Head and then played 2 years at Chattanooga State, 2 years at Berry, and then she's still the head basketball coach for girls at Valley Head. Now she was voted in, and then Ronnie Crabtree from Fort Payne. He was an outstanding athlete. He coached baseball. He's in administration now, but he got voted in. So that's the 8 that are going in on June the 15th of next year.
Phil, one Jamie Vest, then Jamie Phillips story that I remember us being at the BJCC doing Valley Head in that final. Pam Duncan misses basketball for the state of Alabama, somewhere over 6 foot tall. And I remember Jamie Phillips at the time just taking her task for 48 minutes.
Yeah. Yeah, she was an outstanding player. She's one of those, I think, Coach Holloway would tell you that and I've seen him do it several times when I call radio. It's about 3 minutes to go in the game, you're up 3. He takes the air out of the ball, spreads the court, puts it in Jamie's hands, and he won many games that way because Jamie, they couldn't steal the ball from her. And another thing is, if you fouled her, she was clutch. She might miss 5 free throws during the game, but in the last 3 minutes of the ball game, it was automatic.
Yes, absolutely.
Some players just have a knack. I mean, you don't really understand it, but some players just have a knack. The game just kind of comes to them. It slows down for them, and she's that type of player.
I don't know if you remember that finals, but it was one of the most thrilling basketball games I've ever been at. So
yeah, it was. They lost on that 3-point shot by ninth grade that wouldn't have made it if she shot 10 more times.
Yeah, absolutely. And I remember being in the hospitality tent before the hospitality area before the game, and folks, it was kind of like the old story about Tennessee and Miami, people hoping that they could stay with them to halftime. And I believe a lot of people there watching that 1A state title game believe that Valley Head would be doing well to stay with them for a half. So
because they pretty well took it to Valley Head in the semifinals the year before over Hansville, because Pam Duncan had an outstanding game, just played lights out. But in that game, they pretty well shut Pam Duncan down and really controlled the basketball game. Even though they didn't ever get out to a real huge lead, they controlled the game until that shot happened.
Absolutely. All right, Phil. One more subject, and we got to let you get out of here to go to the banquet. Short version, and again, folks, Beyond the Booth will be with you all year. Next week being Christmas, we'll probably miss that week. Come back with more basketball. Got a lot of stuff up in Tennessee. You know what, Phil? Baylor, #1 in the state of Tennessee, all divisions in basketball right now. So a lot of things we got to talk about in the area. But God, one of my favorite times of year when I was down there with you is the Sand Mountain Tournament. And it was just absolutely the best run tournament, high school basketball tournament I've ever been part of.
It kind of kicks things off because you get this right around Christmas, and then after the New Year, you really get into some important games. So the Sand Mountain Tournament this week, the girls is playing where they had two preliminary games Saturday night, but girls are playing tonight, boys play tomorrow night in the quarterfinal round. And if you want to, we can go through it right quick.
Yeah, please do.
Of course, Saturday night, play-in game, Geraldine beat Crossville 55-29, which moved them into the quarterfinals. And then in the boys' side, Crossville beat Ider 55-45 as a play-in game. So earlier today, as it got started, #1 Plainview played Geraldine. They beat Geraldine 81-26. That's the only score I have for you right now. Later on in the afternoon, Pisgah played against Fife. That was at 4:30. At 6 o'clock, North Sand Mountains girls play Sylvania. North Sand's 10-3. Sylvania right now is 2-9. They're off to a struggling start. Fife's girls, they're off to a good start. They're 8-4. Pisgah's got started late, so they're only 2-4 right now. And then in the nightcap, Ider, who's 9-3 right now, will take on Section, who's 5-6. Of course, on the boys' side, we said Crossville went over Ider. They get Plainview tomorrow afternoon at 3 o'clock. So Crossville plays Ider at 3. If I can read my own writing. Geraldine plays against Section at 4:30. That's Geraldine 5-3 and Section 6-6. Of course, Plainview right now is 9-3 on the season. Pisgah, who's now 5-6, they play Fife, who's 6-7 at 6 o'clock. Then 5-6 North Sand plays 3-3 Sylvania at 7:30. So very competitive. A lot of 500 records on the boys' side, but it'll still be a great tournament. I think, of course, Plainview may be the team to beat. But some teams an opportunity to get on a roll in tournament play. That's what you like to see.
That's absolutely and a lot of times you would see that team that won the Sand Mountain Tournament be so tourney tested that they would do so good this state tournament.
Yeah, they definitely would too. Of course, we've got a lot of area teams around here. Of course, we'll get into all that later on. Right now, just to kind of tell you a few, Fort Payne's off to an 11-0 start. Robbie Coker come into Fort Payne and has gotten things going good for them. They're playing Etowah. DAR. They play DAR tonight to try to go to 12-0. Their girls are 10-3. They're kind of been overshadowed by the boys, but they're doing well. Of course, Sandrock's girls, they're usually good. They're 11-2. I said Spring Garden. They're unreal in Class 1A. They're off to 11-0 start. Because we talked about Fort Payne. Right now, Scottsboro's girls, they're 7-1. Traditionally, a very strong program. Of course, Skyline, a very strong program down here. They're at 9-1. On the boys' side, Collins was off to a 6-4 start. Of course, Plainview right now is at 9-3. They're playing well. Collins was at 6-4. Asbury, they're pretty good. They're at 7-4 right now. Valley Head's struggling a little bit. On the boys' side, they're 2-7, but the girls picked up a big area win Friday night against Woodville, so they're now 3-5 on the year. So it's getting to be exciting time for basketball here. And hopefully I'm going to get to do some games on radio with Howie. I mean, it's kind of playing, but I haven't heard anything quite yet. But I'm looking forward to that because basketball is a lot of fun. I enjoy it a lot. I like calling games better. I think I like it better because it's inside. I don't like being out in the cold weather.
Phil, I want to ask you one question, and we'll call it a night tonight, and we'll come back with Beyond the Booth. But I've been in preparation for this. I've been getting out doing some research. Red Bank, good basketball team. Ray County, good basketball team in the area. But in the Chattanooga area, the private schools and even some small schools that you've not heard of, for example, Hamilton Heights, who had 3, 4, and 5 stars about 2 years ago, have become these superpower kind of basketball teams traveling all over the nation. You have Baylor at 7-0, Hamilton Heights, I talked about 10-2, Christian Heritage just outside of Dalton, a very small private Christian school, Silverdale Academy, McCauley, Tyner represents the top 6 teams in the Chattanooga area. And I do know, we've seen Oak Hill play here, IMG play here. A couple of years ago, Hamilton Heights was at some of the biggest schools in the nation playing. How do you feel about that?
Tennessee's a lot different. Football, of course, there's a big difference in private. I think it's because of the private public schools. Now, here in Alabama, it seems like now there is a difference. You can tell the difference in football with the private schools and the public schools. That's why they try to move these private schools up as quick as they can when they start having success. And that's where competitive advantage worked out this year. Coosa moves up. Madison Academy moves up.
Absolutely.
Well, in basketball, we really don't see that much difference. Now, when it comes to like volleyball, softball, and things like that, there's a big difference in the public school, private school. But in basketball, we don't see it that much. But I can understand what you're saying is, they travel everywhere, but that's how they get people to come in to play. Schools there. I know one year Asbury down here had players from, they had a couple players that wasn't even from this country that played for them. Wow. That's been 15 years ago. They don't do that anymore. But they brought players in from way off. And so, these schools do that, in Tennessee especially. They bring kids in that ain't nowhere near from here and bring them in and put them through an educated program. And, of course, parents, if they get a chance for their kids to play with elite kids, they're going to send them, especially if the kids want to play.
Well, I don't mean to say that basketball is destroyed at the next level. It's just like they're almost 2 different levels. Basketball is healthy in the public school. Red Bank they've been called the Road Warriors this year already. Number 9 in the Chattanooga area. Ray County, not traditionally a great basketball school. On the boys' side, 12-2, Phil. So there's some good storylines that we'll have this year to follow in basketball. I'm going to try to just loop that Chattanooga area together. LFO's girls have been really good the last couple of years. Won Best of Preps 2 years ago. So good basketball area up here. People probably don't know as much about it. North Alabama, I think people know about. I think they know how good the basketball is there.
Well, it's so community supportive. Basketball at one time, because we had so much success around here, our girls especially have had so much success. A lot of times, you had a big following for basketball. Now, football has raised its level. But basketball, we've always been strong around here. Pisgah's known more for basketball than they are football.
Mm-hmm.
Skyline, they don't even have football, and they're great in basketball every year. Spring Garden's always been known for basketball, not football. So Section's been known for basketball, not football. So it's been so competitive around here, especially on the girls' level. We've had so many successful state championships, people get to the region tournament, that everybody looks forward to it every year because now we have a lot of teams. Now we're having boys teams having success in basketball. And I think probably, Randy, is probably not enough people in the Chattanooga area cover basketball like it is here in Northeast Alabama. We have papers that cover the games. You'll read about stuff on the internet constantly. And, of course, back in the days when I used to work for K98, we had basketball games on all the time. We did all the region games, all the state games. So there was a lot of interest in basketball. But when I left K98, it kind of drifted away radio-wise. Now, they'll pick up the feed from down there, but it's nothing like having somebody from your area do ball games because
right.
You want these kids to be, and that's what I always talk about. When you do these games like county tournaments and semi tournaments, you make these kids household names. And that's what you want. That way, if you're listening on the radio, you recognize their names. And it makes it a lot more interesting for the people listening.
Phil, another question about the same, kind of a different twist on it. Right now, if you look at the number one teams in the state, and I talked about how there are elite private schools in the Chattanooga area, the public schools in Memphis, Bartlett, Cordova. I mean, when it comes tourney time, Memphis will win 6 out of 7 of the classification. And some of the Memphis schools a couple of years ago, I think it was last year, one of the Memphis schools had 4 stars and a 5-star on a public school. Memphis is a different level of basketball.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about is recruiters camp out and stay in hotel rooms all during basketball season.
Yeah.
Just watching these kids just to see if they can find a diamond in the rough. They know who the big boys are, but there's a lot of them in waiting too. So, yeah, there's some outstanding players come out of Memphis.
Do you think that hurts the other regions of Tennessee's competitiveness, knowing that, you've got a monster out of West Tennessee anytime you want to make a state title run?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how big basketball really is. When I was in Chattanooga, football was king and basketball was way down the list. It was more baseball and softball.
I was going to say basketball might be.
Basketball was way down the list when I was in school. Now, I got down here, basketball's always been big. Always been big. The softball wasn't much because they didn't play much softball here. They only played, if they played girls, it was slow pitch. But when they got into the fast pitch, golly, softball's huge around here now. There's some great teams. But I think that's kind of with Chattanooga, basketball kind of takes a back seat to the other sports.
Baseball, I was going to say baseball is a bigger sport at the high school level in Chattanooga, I believe, than basketball.
Oh, yeah, because I remember you're talking about when I was in school, I think I remember Ed Bank was good. Of course, Baylor McCauley was good.
Saudi Daisy, legendary.
When I got to Ottawa in the 9th grade in 81, they won the softball state championship.
Yeah.
Softball's been big in Chattanooga for a long time.
Yes, sir. Well, Phil, we're going to cut it short tonight. Let you get out to the football banquet. Appreciate it. Glad we got on here. We still may sneak in a show next week if we got some topics, but everything here shuts down next on Friday. Maybe we'll just come on and recap the Sand Mountain tournament.
Yeah, we could do that. Now, I'm going to try to see if I can get Jamie Vance to come on and maybe talk about her being inducted into the Hall of Fame.
Be great.
With her. I'll try to speak with her and see if I can't get that lined up.
Be great. But I'm glad we got on here and done the show tonight. You'll give us an update on the Valley Head football banquet, and sure enjoyed it tonight. Nice to be able to talk about a little basketball.
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it. I hope everybody has a great holiday. Can remember the reason for the season, and hope everybody's safe. And we'll look forward to seeing everything come again after the first of the year. It's time to enjoy a little time with the family.
Amen. And for Phil Harris, for Randall Cunningham, this has been Beyond the Booth, your weekly high school sports magazine. Good night and God bless.